Tonight on CFTK-TV, a meteorite has been captured on Canadian soil. Pierre Poilievre makes an appearance on Vancouver Island, and the Vancouver Whitecaps hire a new head coach.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. To start off the cast, the City of Prince Rupert has posted a notification saying that the boil water notice that was put into effect at the end of November is getting extended for another 4 to 6 weeks. Part of the reason for the extension is because in their process of installing a new water supply main, an isolated section of the pipe was discovered to have had water sit in it for far too long, so work needs to be done to address this problem. And since this problem will require scheduled construction work as well as some water quality testing before it can be given the all clear, Northern Health has instructed the city to keep the boil notice in place for at least a few more weeks until that work gets finished. Now moving on to our first bigger story of the day, it's about a woman in Dawson Creek who was a victim of sex trafficking as a child, and she is now trying to make lives better for people after struggling with a very harsh childhood herself. And warning, there is mention of sexual abuse and overdose in this story. On to Michelle Bernoro with CTV News.
For too many years, Rosalie Gallagher, now 39, held on to a dark childhood secret.
No one knew. As many people as we had around us, nobody knew.
What they didn't know, she says, began when she was elementary school aged, living in Prince George, where she says her own mother trafficked her for drugs and money.
While my friends in school, they were learning, like they were playing with Barbies and Polly Pockets and stuff like that, I was learning about other things that no child should have.
Though Rosalie says she has tried to block out her younger years, there are some things she cannot forget.
She would dress me up and she would do my hair. I would have a little bit of lipstick on. She would put a little bit of blush on. A guy would come up to the door and I would be at the door holding her hand, and he would look at her, he would smile at me, and he would hand her money, and she's like, okay, you got to go to the park with this nice gentleman.
In isolated areas of the park or down by the river, men would abuse her.
A lot of the action, it was in their vehicles, and sometimes it was at the river, like just on the ground.
She says refusing to go with the men was not an option.
I would rather go to the park instead of getting slapped around or thrown around from her.
Research shows that when it comes to sex trafficking, traffickers often know their victims. And what happened to Rosalie, say experts, is still happening in BC and across the country.
Familial trafficking is a large component of the trafficking that we see, certainly in communities where poverty and addiction are serious.
Brown says these are some of the most difficult cases to uncover.
It's happening behind closed doors in many ways, and there's so much shame, and because it's familial trafficking, the girls who are being trafficked in those situations don't always necessarily understand what's happening.
I just can't help but think, what did she go through so bad in order for her to hurt me as a child, like to hurt her own?
Rosalie says she ran away from home as a teen. She began using drugs and was soon addicted to crystal meth, her life spiraling out of control. Then one day, she says, she got a call that changed everything.
I got that phone call saying that your mom overdosed. Her body was decomposed when we found her. And I don't want my daughters to get that phone call.
Rosalie still struggles with the trauma of what happened in the park.
They're not even meant to me. Those were monsters, because they're the ones that are still haunting me at night.
But she found the courage to pull herself out of addiction, become a full-time medic, and earned a diploma with the goal of one day becoming an addictions counselor, thanks to those who stood by her.
They remind me constantly, daily, that I'm an amazing person and I have come through so much.
She's sharing her story to give other trafficking survivors hope.
You're not there to be abused. You have the strength within you.
The strength, she says, to overcome the past. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Dawson Creek.
Moving on, the District of Kitimat has provided a few details to CFTK-TV on what they expect to target in their upcoming community study to grow the area. As far as improving Kitimat as a whole, they told us that they are focusing on 4 topic areas, also known as lenses, including daily needs, transportation, infrastructure, and housing. And to discuss this more with the community, the district is inviting the public at the following places next week to discuss these lenses. As for housing, a few more details have been given to us, and that is where the district is looking to complete a housing-focused official community plan by December 31st, and they will provide a regulatory framework to support housing development, and the staff are reportedly reviewing existing zoning and have found that there is existing zoned capacity to address a 5-year housing need number of approximately 630 units. Now, the RCMP in Smithers publicized in their website's newest article that their officers were able to make a fairly notable arrest, and some officers that were in the middle of a patrol in the downtown area managed to find and arrest a man named Kenneth Gonu, who had been wanted on 11 outstanding warrants. Gonu was wanted for offenses such as assault causing bodily harm, breaking and entering, and theft under $5,000. He currently awaits further court rulings. And similar to the previously mentioned arrest, the Smithers RCMP also brought in a man responsible for several repeated property crimes. Emily Tom was also wanted on 11 warrants for offenses like mischief, theft, breaking and entering, breaching a release order, and failing to comply with a probation order. Coming up next, history has been made on Prince Edward Island with a meteorite caught on tape. Welcome back. Well, BC and Quebec firefighting crews have now given the new details on how they are fighting the fires in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas. Andrew Johnson from CTV News has more.
The day began with a fresh firefight in the dark. New flames breaking out northwest of Los Angeles.
The wind is blowing this fire right along the riverbed.
Crews from British Columbia-based Coulson Aviation were called in with Chinook helicopters equipped with night vision, capable of dropping up to 11,000 liters of water.
The big message is that firefighting at night is here to stay.
Coulson is providing us a first look inside the cockpit with crews Coulson says have made a significant difference despite the destruction.
This wind is violent. It moves the fire extremely quickly. And without aerial assault, it would have been a lot worse.
They are joined in the air by Quebec-based super scoopers, including the plane that was damaged by a drone that has now been repaired.
We don't really think about danger when we go up in the air. We just think about what we have to do.
The entire region, millions of people around Los Angeles, and thousands of firefighters are on high alert over predictions of powerful winds.
The worst winds are predicted today for the late afternoon and into Wednesday.
Close to 90,000 people are on mandatory evacuation order. In some areas already ravaged by flames, people are returning to take a look at what's left.
When I first rounded the corner and saw the building, I couldn't control my emotions. This was our home.
Canadian Mary Fish and her family are still staying with friends. Their home in Pacific Palisades has survived where so much else has not.
Everyone's lost something, multiple things. But, you know, the sense of community is strong.
They say they are focusing on just getting out of bed every day and pushing uncertainty aside.
We don't know what the future holds, but we do know there will be a future. And we're going to go into that future together.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News.
And in more weather news, a meteorite landed in Prince Edward Island this past weekend, and though it's not the first one to land on Canadian soil, it is the first one to be recorded with visual and audio proof. Here's Sarah Plowman over in the Maritimes.
On an ordinary midsummer day on Prince Edward Island, something extraordinary. From this angle, it's hard to tell, did that tumble from the house or the sky? Whatever it was, homeowner Joe Validum says it missed hitting him by about 2 minutes.
It landed right between my legs where I was standing.
He left to walk his dogs. When he got back, dust covered the walkway.
We had no idea what it was, and we were cleaning it up and going to throw it away.
A neighbor heard the smash. Curiosity led them to look at this camera. He sent photos and samples to a meteorite expert at the University of Alberta, who happened to be on vacation on PEI in 2 weeks. Chris Hurd confirmed that yes, this was a meteorite, the first ever recorded to land on PEI, but also a first for the world.
First time that we've been able to record the fall of a meteorite, both in video and sound.
A sound never recorded before.
It's kind of like what you would think ice shattering would sound like.
Hurd says meteorites fall to Earth every 5 days or so. In Canada, only about 70 have been confirmed. Often we see them speed across our skies. It's rare for them to hit a structure like this piece that hit a home in Edmonton, rarer to be caught on camera. Hurtling down at about 200 kilometers an hour, Validum is glad he moved.
We need to be reminded that the lives that we lead are just a small part of this, celestial drama that's so much bigger than we can possibly imagine.
And now we turn to tonight's weather forecast and the week ahead. For tonight's forecast, expect the Prince Rupert area to have periods of rain with winds from the southeast at 40 kilometers per hour, increasing to 60 at points. Those winds will switch to the southwest and the temperature should be at 6 degrees. Terrace and Kitimat should have rain ending this evening, followed by cloudy conditions with a 60% chance of showers, and the winds should be at 30 kilometers per hour up to 50 at times with a low of +3. The Bulkley Valley should be partially cloudy with light winds at 15 kilometers per hour, along with a low of -6 and a wind chill of -10. Moving on to your weekly weather forecast, Prince Rupert should see a fair bit of sun this week with lower temperatures than usual. No snow is to be expected, just some light showers tomorrow during the day. The high will be 5 degrees tomorrow and the low will be -4 on Sunday night. The Terrace and Kitimat region will have some rain tomorrow, but some more sun than usual heading into next week. The high will be 3 degrees tomorrow and the low will be -7 on Sunday night. Finally, the Bulkley Valley should see clear conditions with some sun for the next few days, followed by cloudier days starting on Sunday. Watch out for that steep drop in temperature on Friday, going from -2 to -15. The high will be 0 degrees tomorrow and the low will be -16 on Saturday night. And now let's take a look at your Northwest roadside report. For more updates, make sure to check out drivebc.ca. Highway 16 has limited visibility from Doreen to Whitsett, water pooling from between Whitsett and Quick, bridge maintenance from Whitsett to Smithers, utility work in Vanderhoof and Prince George, and slippery sections throughout. Highway 37 has limited visibility between Terrace and Kitimat, compact snow between Cranberry Junction and Bell 2, and slippery sections. Highway 37A has vehicle incident at Bear Glacier turnout and compact snow throughout. Highway 118, the Nishka Highway, and Telegraph Creek Road all have slippery sections. These are what the cameras were looking at around the Northwest. Still to come, the Vancouver Whitecaps have now hired a new head coach. Hello again. Well, federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made his way to Vancouver Island just yesterday, as he is expected to earn more than half of the support from BC residents.
Pierre Poilievre was on Vancouver Island Tuesday in full-blown campaign mode, touring two blue-collar businesses, mining for votes in a federal election expected in weeks.
I think Vancouver and Islanders are ready to have a common-sense Conservative government that will crack down on crime, axe the taxes, incentivize more home building.
The federal Conservative has already paid multiple visits to the island as leader, even though his party doesn't hold any of its seats and has 14 MPs in BC.
When you've got a party riding this huge wave of popularity, both nationally and provincially, he's got to like that he's going to turn at least half of this island blue.
Poilievre weighed in on U.S. President-elect Trump's taunts of taking over Canada with economic force.
I'll make it clear every day and in every way that Canada will never be the 51st state. We are a proud, independent, sovereign country.
On Trump's looming tariff threats, he didn't say specifically whether he'd support export bans on Canadian goods or energy, like Premier Eby has suggested.
First, I'm going to pass a massive bring-it-home tax cuts that incentivizes businesses to hire more people and build more here in this country. I will retaliate against any tariffs the Americans impose on us to deter them from attacking our economy.
Asked whether a Conservative government would continue with current federal funding for BC, including for childcare.
We want to know is how what has actually reached the people on the ground, right? Like, sure, there's lots of spending, but who's actually getting the money? We want to make sure the money doesn't just get eaten up by bureaucracy.
Poilievre will be in BC until Friday. He'll undoubtedly be back before long, trying to increase his party's share of the 42 seats soon to be up for grabs.
On to sports news. The Vancouver Whitecaps have now hired a new head coach in Jesper Sorensen in the middle of a time where the future of the MLS organization is somewhat unknown. Here's CTV's Kevin Chirac.
Ball gets to the byline, gets the cross in! It's deflected in! With the season just around the corner, the Caps have found their new coach, Jesper Sorensen.
I think it's great being in Vancouver. I've been in Danish football for the entirety of my career, both as a player and also as a coach.
The 51-year-old comes from the Danish Super League, where he led a high-scoring Brøndby club to a second-place finish.
The best way to entertain somebody is in soccer and football is scoring goals often, right, and winning games. So of course that's something we want. We want to play an offensive style.
He is a coach who has a proven record of taking over teams and not taking a lot of time to have an impact as a coach, a positive impact.
Sorensen replaces Vanni Sartini, who led the Caps to an up-and-down 2024 season, which ended for the second year in a row with a first-round playoff loss. But the hiring comes in a time of uncertainty for the franchise, as the club is still for sale. The team was asked about the situation today.
There is nothing happened yet, and I told everyone, no one has to be worried. This is a process that will take time.
This is somewhere out in the future, and I don't have any thoughts about it, to be honest.
The Caps were put up for sale in December with an estimated value north of $400 million. Finding a local buyer for a team that doesn't own its own stadium could pose a major challenge.
Sincerity is there for the Whitecaps to keep the team there. I think that's emphatically true. But also true is that ultimately money talks, and if there is no local money, they will have to look elsewhere eventually.
The Caps are now off to Spain for 3 weeks of training ahead of their season opener in Portland late next month. Kevin Chirac, CTV News, Vancouver.
Now we turn our attention to the stock market, where we have an increase in all but one category. The Canadian dollar is up 0.2 of a penny. The price of gold is up $35.50. Oil is up $2.34. And natural gas is up 11 cents. And aluminum is down $18. In Toronto, the TSX is up about 201 points. The Venture Index is up 4. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 703. And NASDAQ is up about 467. Still ahead, the upcoming U.S. Defense Secretary is receiving blistering questions on leading America's military. Welcome back to our final segment. Pete Hegseth, who has been appointed as the U.S. Defense Secretary by President-elect Donald Trump, has been under scrutiny in U.S. court. And Joy Malvin from CTV News has the rest of this story.
Greeted by supporters and protesters,
security force will remove.
Pete Hegseth, the Fox News anchor and decorated Army veteran, defending his credentials.
When President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me
was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense.
Grilled over his shifting controversial views.
It hasn't made us more effective.
Including that women should not serve in combat roles.
Please explain these types of statements because they're brutal and they're mean.
Will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat?
Senator Tammy Duckworth, who lost her legs in Iraq, ripped into Hegsworth over his lack of experience.
How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect?
And it got personal.
Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared?
Hegseth has denied allegations of sexual assault, accused of financial mismanagement of veterans groups, and even accused of showing up drunk at work.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign as
serving.
Secretary of Defense?
I've deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my questions.
Hegseth admits he's not perfect, calling it all a smear campaign. Republicans coming to his defense.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job?
An investigation will now be underway to look at exclusion for children in British Columbia, with some citing that trained educational assistance was not available to them. Now on to CTV's Shannon Patterson with our final story of the day.
And an oval. Last fall, 5-year-old Daniel Gardner, who is blind and lives with epilepsy and autism, started kindergarten in Nanaimo.
Daniel is so curious and so exploratory. He has made friends.
But a lack of trained educational assistants at his school meant Daniel wasn't able to attend class full-time until October.
This is a huge systemic problem. You know, this is across the province. It's happening at all grade levels in all school districts.
On Tuesday, BC's ombudsperson announced he's launched an investigation into the exclusion of students from BC's K-12 public education system.
Over the years, we've received individual complaints from parents and families that their child has been excluded, perhaps for reasons of disruptive behavior or that the school district simply didn't have the resources to provide that extra bit of support to keep somebody in school. But inclusive education demands that.
The investigation will determine how widespread the problem is and what can be done to ensure all BC children have access to a full-time public school education, regardless of ability.
I'm really hoping that the investigation not only brings to light, you know, these battles that we're all fighting, but it also puts a little bit of motion in place to see some change in the long term.
Parents who want to contribute to the investigation are being encouraged to contact the BC Ombudsperson's office. Ashley Gardner is eager to participate and has a message for other parents fighting to get their children the education they are legally entitled to.
You don't have to fight this alone. And if there are ways to participate in this investigation, please get on board.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
That will be all for tonight's cast. Thank you very much for tuning in and have a good night.